Welcome to the Handspring webinar, Moved to Learn. This is a webinar for manual therapists and movement educators. And today we are delighted to welcome Jan Trewartha, co-editor along with Sharon Wheeler of the book, Scars, Adhesions, and Biotensegral Body, Science, Assessment, and Treatment. Before I introduce Jan, let's take a look at how this webinar will proceed. It will comprise roughly 45 minutes of discussion and 15 minutes of Q&A. There will be a couple of video presentations and a number of slides. The chat is on, so do say hello. And we welcome questions. So we ask that you submit these questions using the Q&A button on your screen, and we'll answer as many as we can. At the top of the hour, we will show the closing slide that explains how you can contact Jan, her school, Body in Harmony, and get a generous discount on the book. However, we're happy to go beyond the hour to answer all of your questions, so please realize that you can continue with that for 10 minutes after the hour. This webinar is being recorded, and we will share a link to it in the follow-up email. But just recognize that since the webinar is being recorded, your comments in the chat will become part of that archive. The webinar is also streaming live on YouTube, and you see the link on your screen. Finally, we just have a disclaimer that this discussion is for informational and illustrative purposes only and is not meant to impart medical or therapeutic advice or instruction. We refer you to the book, Scars, Adhesions, and the Biotensegral Body, co-edited by Jan Trewartha and Sharon Wheeler, for more information. And now I'm delighted to introduce Jan Trewartha. Jan is the founder and director of the British Fascist Symposium. She has been in healthcare since 1979, originally training as a state-registered nurse in the Queen Alexandra Royal Army Nursing Corps. She worked with patients on the wards and in the operating theater. In 1988, when she was being treated by a blind massage therapist to really feel the body, that led to her current passion, her lifetime passion for body work. Jan was a massage volunteer at the Auckland Commonwealth Games, where she learned from professionals from all modalities. Through her school, the Body in Harmony training, Jan runs a variety of light touch therapy courses, including Sharon Wheeler's Scar work, for which she was the first accredited tutor in the UK. Jan Trewartha, welcome to Move to Learn.
Thank you, Elizabeth. How lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's my pleasure. I've really enjoyed being a part of British Fascist Symposium, the 3 that you have produced, and the most recent 4.
Yeah, the last one was online, but 4.
That's right. That's right. And had the pleasure of having a scar work session with Sharon Wheeler at the first British Fascist Symposium.
Lucky you.
So, yes. Would you tell us how you and Sharon met and how you came to bring scar work to the UK?
Yeah, for sure. I went to the Fascia Research Congress in Vancouver back in 2012, and I have a scar myself, and I was pretty desperate for somebody to help me because I was developing adhesions, and not that I knew what was going on in those days. I didn't really know much about scars at all. Anyway, somebody said, oh, well, you should meet Sharon Wheeler. She's the sort of guru in Canada and North America of scars. So I thought, oh, wonderful. Where is she? Where does she live? Oh, Seattle. I said, Seattle, that's just over the water. Fantastic. How do I get hold of her? And they said, oh, she's over there. So there's this lady sitting there very quietly on the floor eating her sandwiches. And I just sort of descended on her I said, oh, hi, can you treat my scar, please? Hi, I'm Jan, can you treat my scar, please? And she looked up at me, she goes, oh, yeah, I guess, you know. And it turned out he was off to traveling and teaching almost the next day. So the only thing she could do was that next morning on her hotel bed, she did my scar because I just wouldn't let her go. And I said, I'm not here for long. And I was so amazed by what she did for me that I said, can I come back and train? And she was only teaching structural integrators and Rolfers at the time, but I nagged her and I said, well, you know, I've got this background. I'm sure I can learn it. So anyway, I then traveled over, and that was the beginning, really. And I said, right, we're going to do the British Fascist Symposium in 2014. We're going to have you over for the only post-symposium workshop. And we only had 9 people booked on because nobody knew about it. Nobody knew, but 9 people booked on. All the other courses are full. And that's when Scar Work came to the UK. In the following year, she accredited me. And that's the beginning of it. And now Scar Work's grown in the country. It's just spreading through the UK like wildfire. It's quite amazing. We've got maybe about 300 plus people trained in the UK now. There's myself and 2 other tutors, Emma Holly and Andrea Ivanoff. And because it's grown so quickly, we are really taking it forward and developing it. Its popularity, people's understanding of it is what we want to get over and increase. And some of our, erstwhile students, they're now Scar Work therapists, colleagues, they are working as volunteers. Many are working as volunteers in hospices and hospitals. And apparently some of the hospitals, I haven't established which ones, are starting trials now because they can see the difference that Scar Work makes.
Yes. Yeah. Jan, may we see the video now that gives an introduction to Sharon and to her hands with Scar Work?
I think that's a lovely idea. If people buy the book, you actually get a link to Sharon Wheeler demonstrating 5 very simple, non-intrusive Scar Work techniques, and that you can try on your friends, you know. And this one we thought we'd show just feather light sweeping, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's feather light, and it's our introductory technique. And this is the wonderful Sharon Wheeler, whose hands are worth watching alone. And we'll leave you in her hands. Yes. Thank you.
With the technique that I start with on almost all people, because it warms up the surface and gets things going. This is called feather light sweeping. I usually use 1 finger, and I use a hand as a bracing object to keep the tissues in place. And then I sweep towards the scar. The scar runs right along in here, from here to here on him. And there's another one over in here. There's a little one over in here. Any more over here on this leg?
No.
Okay. So if I want to sweep towards the scar, I've got to brace over and come towards the scar. You can see I'm not doing very much to it. To the tissue, I'm not pulling at it. I go places where I think the swelling might have gone to, so I can go far afield of the actual scar, but I'm going towards the scar. In Scar Work, you want to put things together. You don't want to take them apart. I can use more fingers than 1 if I want to. Depends on the angles you need. It's very superficial. Probably. That feels reasonable, yes, Larry?
That's fine.
Yeah, it's not hurting at all. But take it down from the surface down into the deeper layers.
Okay.
Same kind of principles apply. I stabilize the tissue. I don't stretch and pull at it. I just stabilize it. And then I go towards the scar with the intention of putting things together. My hands are relaxed and fluid. I'm not stiff. You can come the other way as well, using my right hand as the bracing hand and my left hand as the sweeping hand. Gives me a slightly different angle. I'm moving before I come on, and I'm kind of moving as I come off. I'm kind of moving the whole time. It's like petting a small animal, like a small mouse or a small cat. There's a slight drag to the fingers. It's quite pleasant. All right.
Jan, would you speak about the optimal timeline, the frequency and duration, and for receiving scar work?
Yeah. As you can see, oh, I've got an echo. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
As you can see, it's very peaceful work. It's very relaxing. It's very easy on the therapist and easy on the client. But don't be fooled, because it's light touch, and there's much more about this in the chapter 5 by Leonid Bloom in the book. Because it's like, even though it's light touch, it's working powerfully and deeply. And so you're not going to do 2 sessions a week. We find leaving it for about 3 weeks works quite well. Interestingly, the body seems to take the work that we've done to it and run with it. So what you'll get if you do your before and after photos, which we always do, what you'll get 3 weeks later when your client comes back is quite often much more transformation. And again, the sessions aren't long. We might do anything from half an hour to maybe 50 minutes or an hour. I usually do an hour or an hour and a half sessions, and I probably do 2/3 or less, just a bit under scar work, and then I'll do some integration. I'll just explain why we need to do integration, because it's never just a scar. It's a person with a scar, and each person has their own unique history, and they have their own unique history of damage to their body. So they may have lots of scars. They may have compensation patterns in their body already. They may already have myofascial damage from repetitive strain injury, you know, holding a handbag on one shoulder, holding the baby on one hip, all the different things that we can do. They may have old ankle injuries, sprains. They might have, bad backs. They might have all sorts of things. So when you have a scar, it has this effect that it's going to create an area of tension, obviously, as the fascia becomes restricted by the adhesions that develop underneath. So that is going to create a fascial pull through the system. It'll link into other scars, it'll link into other areas degenerated that are caused all these things that we've been talking about. So when you start to, I can't say get rid of the scar, you're not going to get rid of the scar, but when you start to detension the scar, when you start to integrate it, reintegrate it into the fascial matrix, then you have this freeing, this cascade through the tissues, just as if you were on any myofascial restriction. You get the cascade through the tissues, and to make it much more comfortable for the client, so they're not doing this all on their own after the treatment, you would do some integration and allow that effect from the scar release. I hate the word release. The effect from the scar freeing to cascade through the tissues. Now, I've just seen in the chat that the sound quality is poor, and I know I can sometimes hear my own voice being reflected back at me. Can we do anything about this at all? Is anybody else got really bad sound? Or is it just a couple of people?
Jan, I think it's just my impression is it's just an infrequent warble when there's a weakness in internet connection.
Okay.
So I'm listening for that warble. And if we lose large chunks of your speaking, I'll ask that you please repeat the paragraph.
Okay, lots of people are saying it's fine as well. I think I live in Windsor, and for some reason I don't usually get planes overhead, but this week's been horrendous. So I'm sitting as close to my router as I can. So I apologise if there are some blips.
Well, we can draw some analogy perhaps between the effect that a scar and adhesion has on the biotensegral connection.
Absolutely, yes.
The fact that an airplane could disrupt the acoustic integrity. So
and it's very, very similar. Yes.
I'm reaching, Jan. I'm reaching. Okay. Would you speak also about the optimal? Is there an optimal timeline regarding the work just post-surgery or decades post-surgery?
It doesn't really matter. Interestingly, it seems to respond no matter how old. I mean, I've worked on cesarean sections that 40, 50 years old. And then I've worked after surgery, but we don't work until the surgeon has discharged the person. And I've just seen somebody has asked if you can get adhesions without having a scar. Yes, of course, yes, definitely. Anywhere that there's been inflammation or infection, something like endometriosis, internal work such as internal vaginal hysterectomy, and any area, and I'll talk about it in a minute actually, about where something like an epidural, I could talk about it now if you like. Shall I talk about it now, Elizabeth? Seems to flow.
I think the trajectory, let's go.
Let's go, we're on a roll. So anywhere where you've got, say, an epidural or a cannula going into the skin, or arthroscopy, any oscopies, any scopes, anything where you've got something entering the skin and potentially go to keyhole surgery, going deep into the skin, or even shallow, will create its own little scarring, as will inflammation and infection. And we have techniques for that. We have the technique for that that goes really deep and works brilliantly on that kind of scar. Yeah.
Given that you're the first tutor in the UK that was accredited by Sharon Wheeler, and that your school, your massage therapy school, Body in Harmony, offers these courses, you mentioned a variety of techniques. Can you just summarize the different types of scar work techniques that are taught?
Ooh, well, I think they've been invented, put together, really in response to what Sharon has found when she's been working. So we have techniques that work on the superficial layers, as with the one we saw, feather-light sweeping. We have compression techniques. We have my one for the one I invented in pure desperation for laparoscopies, which I call down the rabbit hole. And we've got strange names, you know, because Sharon's pointed out that, you know, scar work doesn't work as well if you're trying too hard. And she says, I can give them fancy names if you want to, but it's easier to do something to call them something does exactly what it says on the tin. It's an advert in England, and all the English people will understand that. But what it says is what it does. And down the rabbit hole literally is just one finger, and you've got to know what you're doing. But it's amazing. I think it's a fascial unwinding technique. And unless I have somebody like Dr. Gamberto putting a scan over the skin while I'm doing down the rabbit hole. I don't know. We have a lot of research to do, but it appears to fascially unwind deep within the body and create. It could, when you've got a concave area, then hang on, like that, it can actually flatten out and flatten out and flatten out just from that one technique. So there's some very interesting techniques, and mine was invented, down the rabbit hole was invented because I was trying to work on this tiny laparoscopy scar in some female client's navel. A tiny thing. I was thinking, oh, for goodness sake, I can't do this. So I just put my finger in the navel while I thought about it. Because you know what we like, therapists, we keep contact with the client, don't we? I'm not going to stand back and think about it. So I put my finger in the navel. I thought, now how am I going to do this? This scar's too tiny for me to do any of the techniques that I've been shown. And I was just standing there thinking, and the client said, oh, what are you doing? And I thought, oh no, she's paying me and I'm not doing anything. And I said, well, I'm just considering your laparoscopy scar. And she said, well, your finger's in my back. And I said, oh, is it? And when I focused on my finger, I could feel it actually felt as though I was actually up to here in the skin. That's how it felt. And she could feel the through the fascial connectivity right down into her back from that. So I think that, you know, some of these techniques are really, they're invented in response to what's going on in the body. What do I need to do?
Yeah, and I find this so inspiring, as I find your book as well, because it's so refreshing. I find that this is practice honed over decades and thousands of hours of therapeutic interaction with clients, with patients. And so this is practice that in a way is looking for a theory or an explanation.
Yes.
And it's such a blessing that the two have come together, scar work and biotensegrity, such that they seem to be so compatible, and each moves the other along in terms of therapeutic understanding.
Yes, the biotensegrity makes sense of what we're experiencing, not only in scar work, but in most therapies. How, you know, you'll be working in one area and you can feel it in the other area. You know, I remember when I was on a dissection course with John Sharkey and Joanne Avison, and it was the Biotensegrity Informed dissection course that John runs up in Dundee, the first one. I was very lucky to be invited onto it. And Joanne was sort of in charge of the dissection table I was working on. And what we did was we dissected the left anterior shoulder, and we dissected the right anterior foot. And then we moved the foot, and the movement was in the shoulder. And we moved the shoulder, and the movement could be seen in the foot. And I think I knew about fascial continuity and so on then. It was quite a few years ago, but that really brought it home. And I thought, oh my goodness, I hadn't actually seen it with my own eyes. And there's one thing understanding it, one thing seeing it and feeling it. And I really recommend that kind of course, you know, because you can put your hands, you know what's under your hands then, and you understand how the continuities work, how the body works together, and how if you've got the tiniest scar in your foot, for example, it's going to affect the whole of your body. It's just a question of compensation. It's a question of how the forces are distributed in the body. And Graham Scar writes really well in chapter 4 of the book about this, with his superb modeling these things. And he talks about how the forces will, they are, if you like, received by the soft tissue and distributed throughout the body. But when there's scarring, that inhibits that distribution, and the forces will work around that restriction because they will always find the path of least resistance. So, and it explains why I believe I'm right, why you would be more susceptible to injury if you have scar and other myofascial restrictive damage.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating looking at the biotensegrity part of it. Yeah.
Indeed.
Makes sense of it all, Elizabeth.
And I'm quite fascinated with how a a discovery, like Sharon, what Sharon Wheeler discovering and then codifying the scar work, how that can get conveyed and educated to a variety of practitioners worldwide. And I note in the book that, that you and Sharon have written that there are three aspects to awareness that are integrated in scar work. There's the intellectual awareness, the instinctive, and the intuitive.
Mm.
So in your education approach, how do you integrate these different awarenesses?
Mm. That's an interesting question, isn't it? Well, when I arrived in America and trained with Sharon, she was only training structural integrators. And I think she predominantly still trains structural integrators. Yes, because the UK is the only country where people from different modalities are trained, which is interesting. Massage therapists, sports therapists, Bowen, reflexology, sexologists, all sorts of people, because of course they work with the trans clients, all sorts of people, as long as they have a certain amount of experience, are accepted onto the course. And this has been the first experience of teaching scar work, Sharon's scar work, to non-structural integrators, non-Rolfers. So I think a lot of us, you know, we do our basic massage training and then we do add-ons, whereas structural integrators, Rolfers, is it 3 or 4 years, something, you know, it's a very, very good training, as are some of the modalities here, of course. I mean, we have osteopaths, physiotherapists, chiropractors, all sorts of people from all modalities coming on the courses. And so really you need to try and adapt the training to all of them. And to some people, it's an intellectual approach that appeals to them most. But actually we find that if people avoid the intellectual approach, and that's why, again, why we give them these names like down the rabbit hole and scraping and all sorts of strange names we have, but it keeps it light and it keeps them from overthinking it and thinking like this is some fancy name, it's going to do some fancy thing. Just keep it light, and you can chat to the client or let them go to sleep, or you can hum in your head, whatever. If you can stay right brain, you're going to get more, you're going to get the better approach than if you approach it left brain. Yes, there's the intellectual side. Yes, a good knowledge of anatomy is always a good thing, and certainly we require that. We require a knowledge of anatomy, you know, as part of, you know, the people who come to us, they've got to have A&P, obviously. But if you can let your fingers do the walking and follow the tissue, then you are going to get a much better result. Yes, we deliver about 20 techniques through the 4-day treatment, 4-day class. And they practice on each other, and then they practice on members of the public on days 3 and 4. And they learn the techniques and they have their manuals open and they do all this. But eventually with practice, what we really encourage is that they get the hang of the approach. And the approach is light touch, cause no pain. Lots of contraindications, of course, you know, there are always contraindications, but nothing different really to most modalities. So light touch, no pain, and work with the tissue. And when you allow your fingers to just follow, and you'll feel the tension, you'll feel the lines of pull, and you work with them, and your fingers start to follow with a bit of experience. And certainly on the course, sometimes I have to get people and put my hands over them and just focus through their hands to feel the tissue and just say, there, can you feel it? It's shifted. And and it's something they haven't felt before. Maybe they haven't had much experience, whereas the more experienced therapists will, of course, feel that. So it's taking people into a different way for some of them. Some of them, they're MLD practitioners, they know light touch, they know what they're doing in that way, for example, or Bowen, whatever. But some people have just done their basic massage, they've done a year's experience, which is our minimum requirement in massage, A&P, and then this is new to them. And they're trying to analyze it and do, right, I do this and this and this. And I say, put your hands on And now, can you feel where the tissue wants to take you? Yes. And that's so exciting. I love it when somebody gets that. Yeah.
Yes. Jan, would you show us some examples of the clients that you have worked with, and
Mm,
and speak about the sort of the case studies or the client experiences as you show the slides?
I will. This is actually, shall we start with Bella?
Start. Why
We
not?
start with Bella because that's the first slide of slides I've got up. Is that okay? Should we do that?
Yes.
Let me talk about, hang on. Ah, can you see that? Good.
Soon. Now
Okay.
we can. Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to start with Bella, and then we're going to hear a little video from Bella. Bella is actually the woman who is my third case study in the book. And I'll leave her to explain some of it. But basically, what I want to show you here is that I'm going to show you some slides after Bella's video that really visibly show tangible difference before and after. Now, Bella, I did, I think, 10 sessions, something like that. And this is before, where my cursor is, and this is after. So you would say there's not a lot of difference there. And you think, what are you talking about, Jan? There's no difference. Okay, well, I'm just going to show you that the navel is very different. You see that it's quite closed in there. And here it's opened. The gap has opened. So you can see it's not being pulled together behind the seams there underneath. This here, this is her original scar. She'll explain she was born with bowel atresia, part of the bowel was dead, so she's been operated on since she was a baby. This is much deeper, and then can you see there's more swelling here? And this is much more shallow, and less marked, and less swelling, less distension. The groin here, if you can see, it's much more even on both sides. And here it's shallower there and deeper there. So you can see that she's being pulled to the right, pulled. Can you see that? She's being pulled over. But apart from that, there is not a lot of difference. Now, we're going to hear from Bella now, her testimonial. I'll stop that share. And you say, gosh, Jan, there wasn't a lot of difference there. But now I just want to show you that it's not always the aesthetic difference that is important. We'll just hear from Bella. You may need to turn your volume right on this one, everybody. Thank you. If you can't hear it, it is on YouTube, on Body and Harmony Training, BIH training.
My name's Bella Reed. I'm 26 years old and I have abdominal adhesions. When I was born with half of my small intestines dead, and at 3 days old I had open surgery to have this portion removed. The issues began after this surgery, as where the surgery was performed began to scar. This is where my adhesions came from. As I grew up, I had regular pain in my abdomen and I didn't really know why. I ignored it. Also felt like I had strings inside of me, and when I'd move or stretch, they'd feel particularly tight. And I thought this was normal. I thought everybody felt that. When I was 16, I experienced sudden severe pain and I was painting a garage door. I was hospitalised and I had a 6-hour keyhole surgery. They found that my abdominal cavity was matted with adhesions like bubblegum trapped in hair, and this was across all of my organs and stuck to my abdominal wall. The surgery was called keyhole adhesiolysis, and it's where they cut the adhesions apart to free off the organs. This saved my life and it helped for a year. I then had to have the same surgery again, and once it was repeated, just as many adhesions were found. I have a predisposition to grow scar tissue very quickly and a lot of it. The surgery and recovery was a success, and again I could live a relatively normal life, but this time I was left with pain. At 25 I had a sudden intestinal obstruction and I was hospitalised until it was cleared. but due to my previous surgeries and the level to which my body scars and doesn't stop scarring, I was not recommended surgery unless it was life-threatening. I had between 6 months and a year of hospital appointments, tests, diagnostics, procedures, living in and out of hospital, and it reached a point where the treatments weren't helping and they were struggling to find things that they could do for me, and I was told to learn to live with the condition as it may never get better. I was in constant severe pain. I was unable to walk unaided and some days unable to walk at all. I was mostly bedbound, losing weight rapidly, and I wasn't very big to begin with. Living on an all-liquid diet. My bowel was regularly obstructing, and I was constantly swollen to the point of the skin on the outside was red and hurting all the time. Life was very miserable, and it lacked a lot of hope at that point. So having found scar work, my life completely changed. The first session I entered the room and I couldn't walk. I was helped in. I was in huge amounts of pain with large abdominal swelling. The treatment though was so gentle and so kind, and it was soothing. After the first session, I was able to stand much straighter. I was able to walk a little easier, and this was because I could move my legs with less pain. It was miraculous after one session. As the sessions went on, the work always remained gentle. Work always was pain-free. Feeling the release of the tension under the skin and the feeling of the body unwinding the scars and letting the pain go, it's nothing short of a magical feeling. It's impossible to describe, but it's wonderful. It's what your body needs. Following 10 sessions, my whole life had changed. I was walking upright, the swelling had relaxed, and I was able to have the skin on my abdomen was just calmer again. It didn't feel like it was splitting all the time. The range of food I could eat increased. I wasn't just on liquids anymore. I was able to gain weight. I had a lot more energy from this. I was in so much less pain. My trips to the emergency room were hugely reduced, and I was able to do things like drive again and work again and have a life again. The condition, it robbed me of everything, material and most painfully my independence. Scar work is what gave that back to me, and that was when I had no hope. Without scar work, I wouldn't have a future or any quality of life. I know I'm always going to have this condition, and that's because of the level to which I personally scar. But having scar work in my treatment plan means that I have hope for a better life. So thank you to Sharon Wheeler and to all of the therapists out there who are training in it and have trained in it. You are all nothing short of miraculous. So thank you again.
That always moves me. When Bella lay down on the couch, I could hardly touch her. She was so raw, so raw. She had never been touched in a way that wasn't examining or pre-surgical or post-surgical. And it's so lovely. She has her life, and she has a car, and she has a flat, and she has a job. She's amazing. She will always need to scar work. Yes, Laura, it brings a tear to my eyes, and I did it. But I did it with Sharon Wheeler's scar work, and I wouldn't have known what to do without that. And it's a testimony to the power of light touch, because she was so raw. I couldn't put any pressure, and I couldn't even touch her stomach for the first 3/4 of an hour. I had to work in from around the sides, from the bottom of the belly, from the bottom of the abdomen, from sort of just under the breasts. You know, I was working in. I couldn't touch over the scar. I couldn't touch it. And after about 45 minutes, I think I only did that and a little bit of down the rabbit hole on the keyhole sites. And by the third treatment, I was dropping in and doing indirect fascial release on her, and she was enjoying it. It was just amazing. So the light touch works by mechanotransduction, and Leonid Bloom explains that, plus some quite complicated theory behind that in the book. But it basically means the translation of forces through the fascial continuities into the cell to create cellular change. Fantastic stuff. So I always say to people, if you're doing a scar and it's not working, go lighter, lighter, lighter. Because what we think of as light touch, it's not. Go light, light, light. Engage, but be light. You saw Sharon doing the feather light sweeping, which I hope you'll have a go at. But remember, you need to brace, and you're light. And you could see on the knee, she was actually going a little bit more firmly than on the abdomen. She was responding to the tissue. Each tissue, each area of the body, it's telling you what to do. It is not one size fits all. Every person is unique, and the best thing to do is just to ask them, is that comfortable? It should feel lovely. Just like Bella said, you know, she was blissed out by the work. Blissed. She won't mind me saying that. She said, no, tell everybody, it's fine. But she was blissed by the work. She wants to be there under her own name because she wants people to know about the work, and it's saved her life. So that's Sharon Wheeler's work, and I'm honoured to be so grateful for everything she did and has done and has shared with us. The way it's going forward is so exciting.
Yes. Jan, although, yes, the questions are accumulating, I know that you have some additional slides to show.
I do.
Let's take a look at those before the questions start.
Yeah. So what I thought I'd do is, for these last 10 minutes or so, or 15 minutes before the questions start, I'm going to show you before and after photos of 3 scars from 3 different people. I didn't do much work. I only did a little bit of work on one of them. The rest were all students. So this is what can happen. You don't have to be, hang on, I've just got to, you don't have to be super experienced to be able to achieve this. If I can just make it work. It worked in practice, didn't it, Elizabeth? There we go. Okay, so this lady, gosh, as you can see from the top photo, I think she was in her 50s. This was done maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, by a student who was taught a little bit of scar work and part of my body realignment training, and went home, and I was told, said, pick somebody not complicated. So she chose somebody who was probably one of the most complicated conditions, because this lady had had tendon surgery. She didn't know what for. Her parents were dead. She couldn't tell you what for. And over the years, decades later, this is what had happened. And the surgery was due to happen 3 months later. And Sarah Strong worked on her. And as you can see, after 2 sessions, this is what happened. Now you can see, if I can just use my cursor, the difference here. Obviously, there's an obvious difference, but just to point out a few things, these scars, a self-respecting surgeon would leave these in such a state. They would have been pretty straight to start with. This toe and this toe, they've all curled under. And what they're doing is they are adapting around the foot's inability to disperse the forces and to stand firmly on the floor. So the body has adapted, and as you can imagine, this lady's whole body had adapted. So after this work was done, she obviously needed a lot of fascial work to correct her whole body posture. So here you can see she absolutely likes her feet again. She's put nail varnish on, and her scars are much straighter, and her feet, her toes have straightened out. These are just casual snaps. It's before we understood the importance of doing proper photography to prove what we were doing and show what we were doing. Well, we can't prove it. It's difficult, isn't it? But we can show before and after. The thing is, there's not a lot of research on Sharon Wheeler's scar work, but we are actually raising money to do that. And the first research project will be started early next year, which we're very excited about. We can see with our own eyes, this is empirical evidence. We know from what we see and from what the clients tell us that it works. Usually works and can affect major change. Sometimes it's minor, sometimes it's major, as you're seeing. But we need the research done to validate it, I suppose, because of course our aim in the end would be for it to be quite normal for an NHS doctor or surgeon to refer people for scar work as a matter of course. So, but we need to have the research. So that's one. And there you've got more, you've got larger pictures there, so you can see more clearly the difference. Okay, so this gentleman was on one of my courses and the students worked on him. Now, he had 2 lots of treatment, one this year and one last year, I believe it was. So yes, this year and last year. So this isn't actually the original scar, this is. Now he was outside a pub, and don't ask the details. He was stabbed with a sword. So the sword stab went in here and obviously went deep, deep, deep into the viscera. So emergency operation, they did what they always do, cut you straight open. They've got plenty of room there to work, and all of everything, you know, they had to save his life. So although we've done some work, we have done some work on this one, but this is obviously, as you can see, it's very crooked, the wound has opened a bit there, it's quite wide, the navel's being pulled, they've gone round the navel, so that's never going to change, and it's quite dark and darkly coloured there. He was having a lot of discomfort with it. You can see the way the abdomen is here, that's not even on both sides, and very concave there where the original scar was. Right, so this was after the second treatment. I don't have a photo after the first treatment. So that was just checked, so you can see. So you can see the navel there. Hang on. Yes, let's go through this. So this is all looking a lot straighter, as you can see. This is a little bit more even now on this side. Let's take you to the comparison. So you can see there's more definition down here than here. So you can see that there's going to be more integration and more balance in the structure, in the torso. There's less, this is almost pulling over to the right. Can you see? And now it looks straighter. The navel is always going to be like that, I should imagine. And the sword injury is not as concave here. It's much worse here. It's not as concave there. So you can see he was standing up straighter. You can see very clearly he's standing up straighter. And it was a lot more comfortable for him. The students did nearly all of that work. I just came in at the end to do a bit of fascial integration work to really tidy this up a bit. Yeah, but they did a fantastic job. Okay. You get the hang of it very quickly in scar work lessons. It's easy work to pick up. So this lady had an emergency appendectomy, and again, emergency, so nothing nice, no nice, neat, tidy appendectomy scar. Cut her open so that they can get to the, I'm not sure if it was perforated, but obviously peritonitis could result. There's going to be a lot of inflammation, a lot of internal scarring in this pleating here. Can you see that, how it's pleated? It's compressed. It's almost like somebody's put a finger in there and a finger in there and a finger in there and squashed them all together. It's just pleated. Yeah, you can see she's got a little laparoscopy scar there. You can't, I think it's that one, is the laparoscopy scar. You can see that she's pulled over a lot on the left-hand side. She's being pulled to the left-hand side. I think that one is possibly a navel stud, navel jewelry. I think that's it, but she was in a lot of discomfort from this. Now this is a 2-hour session later. She only had one treatment, and the students did all of this. I didn't get involved. So let's show you the comparison. So it was 7 years ago. Yeah, she had a lot of discomfort, feeling really tied and tethered, like the whole thing was tied up. And they did ordinary scar work on this, and they also did some work that I teach in my postgraduate course, which is specialist work for abdominal and pelvic scarring. So they did a little bit of that as well. So as you can see, they've done a fabulous job. And she's not leaning over as much to the left. She still needs more work, some realignment work, I would say, rebalancing. But if you can see, let's just go back. You can see all that pleating's just gone there. There's a little bit left there. But it was only the first session, 2 hours. You would need more work. This work doesn't tend to revert, but if it does revert, it's because you've not had enough work, basically. You probably need something else done. One session's not normally enough. We tend to recommend the students hook up with one of the clients, the models, you know, our SCAR models on the courses, hook up with one of the students and get more work done, just to really consolidate it and make sure it's all as it should be. But there's definitely still room for improvement, but you can see the massive improvement done in 2 hours. That's quite amazing, I think. So hopefully that'll help you see that, you know, Bella's, you could hardly see any difference. And on these 3 people, you can see a massive difference. So I'm going to stop sharing there.
And we have the 7 minutes till the summary comments at the top of the hour, and then we'll continue with the questions. But okay. Let's start in on the questions now.
Okay.
So from Soledad Cuesta comes the question: when you have a few scars, some of which are older and some of which are more new, in a client, how do you decide in which order to work?
Well, it depends. If she came in, for example, and she had a scar on her ankle from an old injury, maybe an open fracture, and she had a scar, she had a cesarean scar and a scar on the face, then I'd probably, if the scar on the face was the one that was really troubling her, then I'd work on that. But I'd probably work a little bit on the ankle and a bit on the cesarean, because the effects of those scars will be both affecting her posture. You know, it'll be affecting how she walks, and affecting how she stands. And the cesarean, you know, if she comes in with back pain, I'd probably work on the cesarean first, but explain that I needed to work on the ankle as well. So it really depends, because you know, you want them to go away happy, but I would explain to them that they need both worked on, ideally all of them, you know, because even the tiniest scar, excuse me, say under the chin, so many people have a little scar under the chin where they've been running as a kid and fallen over and hit themselves on a step or something, you know. Even that, and I put this one in the book, and you can't see the scar in the photograph, you can't see it, which is why I put it in. But after the treatment, she felt her neck relax, her shoulders relax, and she had felt like that, but she'd done it when she was about 2 or 3, so she couldn't remember feeling that free. You know, that was her normal. And this new normal seemed something very alien that she'd never experienced before. Of course she had before she knocked her chin, but she couldn't remember it. So I work with the clients and I find out, you know, if they're coming in terrible hip pain and they stood on glass years ago and that scar's affecting the plantar fascia, then I'm probably going to start there. you know, and then I'll work up and maybe do a bit on their knee or the cesarean just to say hello, a bit of featherlight sweeping and just a bit of work. And then over the 3 weeks that we leave in between the treatments, that freeing up from the cesarean and the freeing up from the foot would cascade through the tissues, hopefully meet. And with the integration that I would be doing afterwards, and there's a whole session on integration in the back of the book, because it is very important that you reconnect, not just physically, but emotionally, reconnect the client. Because if they've had a pain in their left leg and they think that blooming left leg is always holding me back, it can't do what I want to do, then they're emotionally disconnected from the leg. It's like, and you can see it and feel it. It feels like something that isn't part of them. But you start connecting them physically and integrating that leg into the rest of the body with hands-on touch. They start to reconnect with it. They start to like it a little bit more. Like that, the woman with the feet and how she polished her, put nail polish on her toes. Of course, she started liking her foot more. It looked beautiful compared with how it was before. So it really depends on the client and what they feel they need, and then you tell them what you feel they need and come to a happy arrangement. Once they can feel it working, and you always get them to feel the scar beforehand if they can reach it, and then feel it after 10 minutes, and I am 95% confident that they're going to feel a difference. I'd be very surprised if they didn't. And they usually, or see a difference. I have a little mirror they can look in if it's on the bottom of their feet, or they can feel the mobility. I get them to move their feet. Obviously, sometimes with their permission, I'll take a little video to show their range of movement. And then they go, oh, I can feel it. Oh, and they can just feel it. And after 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, they can feel it. So once you persuaded them that it's going to work, then pretty much they'll follow your advice. Yeah, I hope that answers.
Yes, there's such richness in your answer to each question. We need more time, which we're about to get. However, let's take a look at the slide that explains about the discount for the book and also your contact details. So this book, which is brings us to the Scars, Adhesions, and Biotensegral Body. You can see that there's a 25% off the list price from Handspring and free shipping in the USA and the UK. And there's the code on your screen, so take a screenshot of that. And you can also see how to get in contact with John Tawartha, the Body and Harmony Training, on social. And I think we have an additional slide for, there we go, the contact for Sharon Wheeler's scar work, and the scar work being taught in the UK, the Body and Harmony Training. So also take a screenshot of this so that you know how to get in touch with Jan and for Sharon Wheeler's scar work. Yes. Now, we'll go back to the questions that are pending. From Katrina Patterson, she's wondering about scars after the removal of a varicose vein through the groin. She cannot see the scar, but was wondering if it exists and what might be the repercussions.
So, Katrina, is this a Trendelenburg strip where they just do a little cut and they pull the whole vein out? Is that the one we're talking about? You there?
Let's see, that would be in the chat if Katrina is going to answer your question. But how about, since that was what first came to mind, if you speak to that, Jan?
I think it is. They had, that sounds like the old one, Trendelenburg strip, yes. So too many years nursing. They've got slightly more subtle methods these days, but the Trendelenburg strip was pretty brutal. So they make a little cut at the top, and there's usually a little cut at the bottom of it as well, Katrina, I believe, maybe further down the leg, down near the ankle, or wherever they stripped it from. And then they take the vein and whip it out. Yes, yes, Katrina, that's right. So you'll have the two little scars. Now, we work on those with down the rabbit hole technique, which is explained in the link that you get when you buy the book. You get that link to Sharon Wheeler's scar work. We showed you a sample earlier. So that's great down the rabbit hole. But what you've got to remember, it's not just the little scars, because as that vein will have been pulled out, it will have created damage all the way through the tissue. So you've got a leg length of damage. So I'd say lots of feather light sweeping over the whole leg, and then and over the tiny scars. Even if you can't see it, doesn't matter, it's there. And with a bit of experience, you get to put your finger on it, and you can feel like an emptiness, a concavity, a concave area, and it feels empty. Or it might feel very prickling or painful. So the scar's there. All you've got to do is find it. You can do it to yourself. Yes, you can try. It's not so easy, but if you just if you lie there and just put your finger on it and allow your finger to follow wherever it seems to be going. I know it sounds weird, but I believe this to be a fascial unwinding technique. Then you'll feel the movement within. And then, so lots of feather light sweeping over the whole leg. You should be able to manage that with the gentle bracing and long strokes up over the little scars, top and bottom, and all the way up the leg. I'd say if you've got the little scars between here and here, then imagine that you've got a long scar all the way up the leg between. So you want to be feather light sweeping and bracing and feather light sweeping from scar to scar. And not just that, but whichever direction feels right. Because it's got to be feeling right. If it feels comfortable, it's right. If it feels nice, it's right. If you're going against the grain, if it feels prickly and horrible, it's not right. It goes for whether you're doing it for yourself or doing it with somebody else. Okay? But yes, I would work on that. That's probably having a lot of damage, Katrina. You're very welcome. Yeah.
Jan, Barry Craig brings up about tattoos and the fluid accumulation around a tattoo area, and wonders what would be the relationship between the response of the body to a tattoo and to a scar.
Is that quite a new tattoo then?
I'm not told about that.
It tends to disperse after a while. Yeah, I mean, tattoo is obviously scarring. Yeah, it's been multiple little needles making multiple little holes in your skin. Yes, there will be adhesions. Some people like Bella, whose video you saw, scar very easily. Some people don't. Some people, mobility always helps. But some people have a natural tendency to scar, and some people, as you know, have more of an inflammatory response to something like that than others. So it could be part of the inflammation, it could be part of the restrictions. I'm not sure if it's early or late. I think quite often you get fluid build up around tattoos in the first days and then it disperses. Yeah, but you're creating a restriction. You're creating restriction. You're going to create a restriction of the fluid flowing between the fascial sheets, fascial depths. Yeah.
Right. In order to find a practitioner in one's area, whether it be in California or where Wanda Leonard is asking, or other areas, do you and Sharon Wheeler recommend people to a particular website?
Sharon is trying to compile a list for all the people that she's trained over the years. I guess she never realized it would take off like this. In the UK, we have a list, and it's on My Body in Harmony training website. And that isn't, you really need to go to the website and talk to the person, see what their experience is. All we put is a list of the people who finished the course, who've done the course, and we are happy that they've done the course and that they understand how to do scar work safely. Okay, So by all means, go to their website, talk to them, see how comfortable they feel with, or you feel with them. That's the best thing to do.
Yael Penkos asks if treating scars is something you can do on yourself, like self-massage.
Yeah. We covered that, I think, with Katrina, didn't we? Yes, you can try on yourself. It's not easy. The best thing to do is to find out when the courses are running and volunteer as a scar model. So if you want to be a scar model for my courses, which are mainly done, well, I've got Glasgow in November, I go to Ireland, to Scotland, I think I'm going to be in Switzerland next year, hopefully, and I do London and near me in Berkshire in the UK. And the other teachers, of course, have got their own websites, and we all have scar models coming in for the 3rd and the 4th day, and you're worked on by the students. And so it's a win-win, really. They get to practice on new people with new scars and new stories, and you get free work. So that's probably the best thing to do. Yeah. But yeah, you can work on yourself a little bit. It's not easy, but you can, you know, some things you can do. If you can reach it, you can probably try. Yeah.
A number of the slides that you showed today resulted from scars resulting from surgical technique.
Yes.
Isabel Andreu asks if some of these techniques are suitable for scar tissue that results from a muscle injury, such as a muscle tear.
Yes, you can use the scar work on any injury, and because you're even working lightly through the mechanotransduction, that vibration, that touch is being translated into the muscles. So yes, it would be, if you've torn a muscle, you're going to have areas where there are adhesions. There might not be a visible scar on the surface, but the area will be adhered, and an adhesion will stick any structure together, any structures together that shouldn't be stuck together. So whereas normally you've got the fascia allowing for structural glide with the muscles and the organs, if you've got a tear, if you've got inflammation and there's adhesion developed, then that glide is not going to be there. So it's going to affect your muscles, it's going to affect your posture, it's going to affect your mobility, your functionality, your walking, your running, your sport, everything. So yes, you can use these techniques, but everybody remember, you know, it should be pain-free. And when you think that muscle, God, it's holding you back, it's deep. But what's the tendency? You want to push, go deep, and get to the thing. Don't. Stay light, light, light. I know it's counterintuitive for a lot of people. The lighter, the better. The more effect, and patience. Patience. Just do 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Patience. Allow the body to do what it knows how to do. We're so impatient, aren't we? Especially when we're being held back. So have a go. Yes, definitely. You can never say something's going to work 100%. Sorry, Elizabeth. You can never say something's going to work. Yes, it's going to work. And we're not allowed to claim that. You know, we're not allowed to claim that. But I'd say in the majority of cases, we make a lot of difference. Yeah? Okay, thank you.
A couple of questions in the specifics. Have you worked with people with amputations? And have you worked with people with the scars that result from vaccines?
Vaccine is probably the best thing, is some feather light sweeping, then down the rabbit hole, because it's just where they put a needle in, and then there will be an inflammatory response underneath. So probably those two techniques you can work with, that would be fine. I might have done a BCG scar or two in my time. Yeah, you can quite often get them to flatten down. Just that very light, gentle touch. Amputations, yes, one of the interesting things we recommend the qualified scar work therapists to do after they've had some experience is to go out and work with Healing Hands Network. And that's a really wonderful charity that I know with the British Fascist Symposium, we've sponsored them and raised money for the charity through the symposium before. So some of you may know about them. They do work in England with our soldiers who are injured, but they also work in Sarajevo. And so, yes, I've been to Sarajevo. And I have worked not just on amputations, but on dum-dum bullet wounds and the most dreadful wounds. And yes, amputations. It's always very emotional for them, I think. We found with the people out there, and no doubt it would be the same anywhere, that they couldn't believe we wanted to touch their scars and big wounds as an amputation. Obviously, it'd be well healed. This is all done on well healed scars, you know. And when you get the link to the book video, the videos from the book, above the video access is a whole host of contraindications. Click on it and read it. So we're talking about well healed scars, no oozing, no redness, no, little bit of redness is okay, but nothing major. You know, the thing has to be well healed before you start working on it. But they couldn't believe that we were actually wanting to work on the scars, and then they couldn't believe that it worked, you know. Amputation, sometimes the problem is this phantom pain. Now, I haven't worked on that particularly. I gather that if you get a mirror box, that's particularly good for phantom pain. Elizabeth, you're nodding. Have you used that?
I haven't used the mirror box, but I've worked quite a bit through the Heroes in Motion program and the Danish Wounded Warrior Project. Have worked quite a bit through in movement with people with amputations to deal with that phantom response, but quite a different approach than Sharon Wheeler's scar work. Yes,
and I would use the two in tandem. You know, use the scar work to help with the scar, because the problem is quite often, you know, it's where they fit the prosthetics. You know, and if your scar is sore, you have to wear padding anyway, but if your scar is sore, that totally affects how well you get on with the prosthetic and how mobile you become, how independent you become. So it's a blessing for people to have the scar work and be helped by that. And I know Emma Holly, my colleague, does a lot of work with scar work at the Invictus Games, you know, and the soldiers have benefited hugely from that. And a lot of our therapists go to things like the games and the hospices, you know, all sorts of places where there are injuries and people need help. They just go and volunteer there. So there is a lot of scope for experience once you've qualified. Yeah. Mm.
Yes. Jan, just to note the time, we're now at 13 minutes after the hour, and there are still some open questions. But I just wanted to, I think that we should once more put up the slide about how to contact you and the School for Body and Harmony training, so that people who are interested in additional training, let's say, here's the slide about the book, and here we go. These would be for those of you interested in the upcoming schedule of the scar work and Body and Harmony trainings. You can take down these two websites and get in touch. Also, for Yael, who's interested in knowing, is the training open for non-physios? I would imagine that your websites would show that.
No, it is. You can be a massage therapist with a year's experience. We just require you to have been working for a year, be able to handle bodies. So yes, we get physios, osteopaths, chiropractors, but we also predominantly get massage therapists, sports therapists, Bowen therapists, reflexology therapists, you know, people who've got the A&P, got some experience and want to work with scars. And let's face it, everybody needs to work with scars, because you cannot rebalance somebody if they have adhesions which are affecting them, because it's like spreading out, flattening down a nice tea towel when there's, or a bit of silk, flattening out a bit of silk when there's a burn in it. The burn will pull and restrict and crease up that bit of silk. Yeah, so you can't do that. Everything is connected. You need to work on the scars. I saw a question saying, I must get in contact with the lady who wants me to go to Switzerland now that we're nearly out of lockdown. You'll see on my website, I don't have that many scar courses up at the moment, but let me tell you, it's only because we're rejuggling all the ones that were booked, okay? So I'm in Glasgow, November. That's pretty well definite. I think we're half booked on that. I mean, as long as there's no second wave, all things being equal, I'll be in Glasgow in November. I'm going to be in Berkshire January or February, and I'm literally sorting that out, and I'll have that on the website by the end of this week, by Friday night. I'm going to be in London at the North London School of Sports Massage, Susan Findley's venue, next July, I believe. But again, she's had to rejuggle all hers, and I'm waiting for that to settle. It's like trying to do a puzzle without seeing the big picture. Everybody is doing their bits of puzzle, and we're all trying to slot in. It's been a nightmare trying to reschedule everything. Yeah. And I also teach the fascial unwinding and energy awareness course, which is beautiful. It slots in with the scar work beautifully. Whether you did it before or after the scar work, it slots it beautifully. And that is very much self-developmental and self-caring and working with fascia and trauma and posture and fascial unwinding. And the next one's in late September in Vaginal. So it's almost like a retreat. It's really lovely there. So maybe I'll see some of you there. It's really lovely. That's all on my website. Yeah, so there will be more scar work courses. We're simply a bit slow because of COVID. And I don't want to set them up until I'm confident, reasonably confident that we can go ahead, so we don't have mucking anybody around. But obviously, if you did book and something did happen, you'd be fully refunded. That's not an issue, obviously, so yeah.
Jen, I note some comments in the chat as well as a question that really would be under the umbrella of how does this work, or why, how do you explain the efficacy of Sharon Wheeler's scar work, which gets to the question about research. And you mentioned that there's some research starting.
Yes, research is starting. We've got a major project starting early next year, led by Beverly de Valois, who is a renowned researcher in the field. So, and my answer is, we don't know how it works. We know mechanotransduction affects cellular change. We can't say that feather light sweeping does this, or scraping does this. We can feel the change, the clients feel the change, you can see the change, which is why we need the research. And we want to put it up for examination because we can see it works, and we need to know how. But no, we don't know yet. We don't know. Sorry.
Which gets to the beauty, the efficacy, and the power of the book that you and Sharon Wheeler have co-edited. This book, because it brings together with contributing authors the chapters on the theory and on biotensegrity, together with the chapters about the practice. So there we have practice leading explanation, leading theory.
It is. And, I know the research is important. I know it's important to know how things work. But, if we waited for the research, we'd never get anything done. You've just got to follow. This stuff works. We do it. And yes, of course, we want to prove how it works and why it works. Of course we do. We live in the age where, ignorance is not bliss. But it's coming after scar work has achieved a lot of notoriety, fame, whatever. And of course, research is very expensive to do. Very expensive to do. We've just raised 10,000 for the first project since last September we started. So we're thrilled. We've got a few quid left to go. It's a Just Giving page, Sharon Wheeler's scar work. If anybody wants to give us the price of a cup of coffee, you'll be helping a great cause. But we're nearly there. I think we were only £350 off last time I looked. So it's so wonderful that this is being raised, and then we'll be able to say, yes, scar work has been proven to help in this situation. Fantastic, scientifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
On that note, Jen, well, thank you so very, very much for your generosity and passion for sharing Sharon Wheeler's scar work.
Yeah,
and look forward to being in touch with you through British Fascist Symposium. Tell us about your November course.
I'd like to tell you about a couple of things, if I may. Yes, the British Fascist Symposium is every 2 years, and it ran online Thank you, everybody who's saying thank you. It's lovely. It ran online this year for obvious reasons. If you go to www.fascistsymposium.com, is it com? I think it's .com. You can sign up for the newsletter. Okay, and then you'll hear about all the interesting things we're doing. We are going to be running some online events, and the first one is on November the 28th, and that is going to be on the subject of the fascial pelvis. Our website will be relaunching by the end of September, so if you go on the mailing list, you'll get all the information about when all the tickets are going to be on sale and everything, and I'll be demonstrating scar work on a cesarean section as part of that very interesting day. And then we've got March the 14th next year is going to be a really special day if you're interested in scars. Put it in the diary. And we're going to have Robert Schleip and Sharon Wheeler and myself and Emily talking about scars. Robert is a huge supporter of Sharon's. He promotes it, he teaches on scars with her. Robert Schleip knows that scar work works. He's written an introduction, a foreword for the book, of course, along with Carol Davis. He knows scar work works, and so he will be our keynote speaker on Sunday, March the 14th. Put it in the diary, get on the mailing list, BFS, the British Fascist Symposium mailing list, and then you'll hear all about it when the tickets go on sale. Okay, thank you. Thanks for putting that link up. Lots of changes, lots of very interesting things we're doing via the symposium. Yeah, very good.
Wonderful. Jan, thank you very, very much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much for your lovely interview style as well, Elizabeth. It's so lovely. It's just like having a little chat. It's really nice, and I hope it's been helpful to people. And please don't feel you can't contact me. You're very welcome to email me, jan@bodyinharmony.co.uk, and I'm very happy to answer my questions if I'm able to.
Wonderful.
Oh, what's happening here?